So as mentioned, your guide to home ownership, it's Mortgage 101. We like to cover all the bases, and we like to educate people. And for those who've never heard Clinton before, you are all about education when it comes to mortgages, right? You're passionate about this stuff. You wrote a book about all of this stuff.
Yeah, I wrote a book about mortgage lending called Confessions of a Halifax Mortgage Broker. I love mortgage lending so much. There's so many nuances to mortgage lending. I think that's what makes my job really interesting. And, I've been doing this fresh out of university. I will say that was almost 16 years ago that I've been doing mortgage lending. And, we've helped, thousands of consumers, around refinance, purchase of homes, construction, renewals, stuff like that. We've done over 4,000 transactions here in our office for almost $1 billion. So I want to say that we've seen it all, but every day I see something new. So I think we have the skill set to be able to work through that, and I have a great team of people here that, we help every day.
Almost $1 billion, huh?
Almost $1 billion. So, we're going to have a little soiree here when soirees are a thing again.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be having a soiree very, very soon. You're listening to us from our office here in downtown Halifax. We're actually down in George Street, right across from Province House. For people that don't know, and we're basically right beside the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia. We're in an old bank branch, which I think is kind of unique and kind of interesting. Very high ceiling, so if you hear a little bit of an echo, it's not the studio, it's our 20-foot high ceilings that we have here in our office. And our original office is over in downtown Dartmouth, so we have offices on both sides of the harbor here in Halifax, for people that are familiar with our city.
You're still there, obviously. You got 2 locations.
Yeah, we have 2 locations, and we just happen to be recording our show here in Halifax, and there's nowhere I'd rather be. We really love it down here, and we're excited for people to come back downtown.
You got it. So let's talk. We're talking Mary Detmus, and a big part of that is credit. And if people don't have the credit that they need, refinance is simply unobtainable, right? Or not, I shouldn't say unobtainable, but perhaps not practical.
I think it sometimes can become more expensive when you don't have good credit. And, having good credit can really enable you, if you're going to do a refinance, or if you're going to do a purchase of a home, or if you're going to get a job, or if you're going to rent an apartment, good credit enables you typically to open that door.
Right.
Yeah. And there's other things that you need to support to do a mortgage, like income and assets. And, we can certainly get into that later. But credit is really, really important. In a refinance situation, it's a little bit easier sometimes if the credit's maybe not as hot, because there's a lot of lenders that will lend to people with all kinds of different credit matrices.
Yeah.
Sometimes if the credit's maybe not as strong, or maybe if they've had some credit issues in the past, maybe you can only finance up to 65 or 75% of your home. And maybe that needs to be at a higher risk type lender for a short term while you get more established again, or maybe get yourself cleaned up. And those type of transactions are not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes people need a Band-Aid and a plan to kind of get to that next step. And, I think you kind of mentioned it before the break. Sometimes people get too indebted that they're not able to kind of get out of that, and they're not able to pay it down. And sometimes you get maxed out, and that brings your credit score down. And, some of these things are driven by the credit score. Maybe it's not the be-all and end-all, but, with a lot of lenders, you have to have a kind of a minimum credit score in the prime world to do a refinance. In Nova Scotia, obviously, we have a lot of rural areas. And there's not every alternative lender, or maybe not even every lender that lends in Nova Scotia will lend in more rural areas. So I think that's something to consider. I think the credit that's required to kind of get a prime mortgage needs to be even stronger in some rural areas. The way that lenders typically look at rural areas, they feel like it's a little bit more risky when you're outside of the core of the city. The reason they think it could be more risky is because of well and septic. So that's something that can be very expensive when something goes wrong. And they also feel if a property is on well and septic, or if it's in a more rural area, if they were to take a loss and they had to foreclose on that home, they think that it would take a longer time to sell. And in some cases, that's true.
Yeah.
And depending on the uniqueness of the property and stuff like that, and really the area and, the density of that area, some lenders will lend there, some lenders won't. And some lenders will lend there, but maybe only at 65 or 75% of that property value
as opposed to the
80%.
Yeah. So that's that the lenders
discretion, really, or maybe like their credit matrix or their lending areas.
Yeah.
So that's something that you certainly need to take into kind of account. The good thing is here, because we're doing so many transactions, we have access to a lot of different lenders.
Yeah.
I would say probably the bulk of the transactions we're doing are in Metro Halifax, but there's certainly transactions that we're doing all over Nova Scotia, and and some other areas as well. So having that experience, really we're able to look at it and figure out kind of what the best solution is going to be. And sometimes it's a 2 or 3 part solution, just trying to figure out what the best way to move forward is.
Yeah. So when it comes to credit, we hear credit scores of whatever those numbers are, 7, whatever. What give us kind of an education when it comes to what those numbers mean?
Yeah. So there's 2 credit reporting agencies in Canada. There's TransUnion and Equifax. We primarily use Equifax as the service that we review a borrower's credit score, and we submit an Equifax credit bureau on every application. The credit score is out at 900. So that would be, if you had a credit score of 900, then you would basically be a unicorn. Yeah. And sometimes unicorns happen. Maybe they exist in the wild. I don't know. Just like reindeer might exist in the wild. They actually do. I've not seen a reindeer. I've not seen a reindeer.
No, have you ever seen a 900?
Oh yeah, I've seen them. I've seen double 900s actually. So like a husband-wife combo.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And sometimes it's a false positive, and sometimes it's like, wow, these guys actually have like the most amazing credit ever. And typically you need to have a very aged credit bureau. So you need to be maybe an older person that has a lot of history and very old accounts.
Yeah.
You also have to have kind of that perfect mix of revolving and installment debt. And you need to use your credit. Not necessarily use it so you're going to pay interest. But some people will use their credit card, and then every time their statement generates, it generates with a 0 balance.
Right.
That basically looks like it's not active. And sometimes that will hurt you.
Oh, is that right?
And I have other people who have had great credit, but for whatever brilliant advice they got somewhere along the way, they've closed all their accounts. Nothing active. Or maybe they only have 1 credit card active. And having no credit is almost as bad sometimes as having bad credit.
Yeah. Wow.
And because they were told once, if you're not using that account, get that closed.
Yeah. Told by who? Somebody at the bank?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe their parents. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And, not to slight our friends that work at retail branches, but a retail branch is kind of like a retail store, right? And, they're trying to deal with many different things every single day. They're trying to deal with bank accounts, and they're trying to deal with credit cards and lines of credit and mortgages and investments and, many different types of investments and insurance and compliance and all these things. And I do not envy people who work in retail. It is a hard job. It's a hard job if you work in a retail clothing store. It's a hard job if you work at a retail bank. Because you're trying to keep everyone happy, and it's very hard to keep everyone happy. Let me tell you, it's a real balance, and I think that's where mortgage brokers win quite often, is around really being that expert in one thing. We're not trying to do it all. I can't do it all.
Right.
Even when I get a mortgage file, if it's a file that's kind of outside of my niche and the type of transactions that I do every day. We have other people on the team, and sometimes I'll leverage their expertise to forge forward with that file. I want to make sure that when clients come in, they're going to get the best advice. And I want to make sure that they're going to get the best advice from me or from anybody else on my team when they come in.
How do people monitor their own credit?
That's a really good question, Todd. There's 2 free apps you can download. One's called Credit Karma. And Credit Karma will bring in the data from TransUnion. And there's also Borrowwell. And that'll bring in the data from Equifax. Now, the score that you see on there might not be the score that I see because, they would use a little bit of different algorithms. But it's a really good indicator of how your credit is and what's on your credit bureau.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend that borrowers get both. It's free.
It's free, yeah.
And the reason it's free is, they're going to try to sell you some stuff. Doesn't everybody? Just don't buy it. They're going to try to sell you more credit and data maybe buying and selling with different
Just through emails, via email.
emails, maybe app
bombard you with
alerts and
email.
stuff. Like it's not bombarding. Like I think sometimes like they'll send you like one email a week or something.
Okay, so
I'm
it's
not
no
sure.
big deal.
No big deal.
Yeah.
But it's free. If you would prefer not for something to be free and to get maybe a little bit more in-depth information, you can sign up for credit monitoring with both Equifax and TransUnion directly. But I think if you sign up with those, they're between $20 and $30 a month for each credit reporting agency.
Which is pricey for most people.
If you're spending $40-$50 a month just to monitor your credit,
Yeah.
you got some cash.
So who might be that person that's the right fit for?
I think if people don't want their data maybe shared, or if they don't want to be sold things, I think going with TransUnion or Equifax directly might not be a bad thing, but you got to pay.
Yeah.
If you pay for that service, it does actually provide a couple different things. So I think they provide some like insurance around identity theft. Mm-hmm. Also, I think if you're trying to maybe improve your credit, it's maybe not a terrible idea. If there's things that are wrong on your credit bureau, you can kind of leverage that service to file like an investigation and stuff like that. Yeah. And the one other advantage of you going to TransUnion or Equifax directly and paying the money, if something happens on your bureau, you're notified immediately. Mm-hmm. So like if you have an inquiry, they're going to let you know like that day or the next day. Yeah. Where with Borrowell and Credit Karma, they only update your credit bureau once a week.
Right. In the United States, we hear the term FICO. That's the equivalent.
The FICO score, yeah. So it's kind of sometimes what we refer to kind of like as a blended score, maybe. Mm-hmm. We use the word beacon score. That's just it's a trademark. Mm-hmm. Will Beacon be around forever? I don't know.
Right.
But we're actually there's several different versions of a Beacon score that are available in Canada. And obviously, like the version that we use is specifically for what we do every day. Right. But it's very in depth. We see history, from up to 6 years ago on Equifax. We see mortgage payment history. We see credit cards and all kinds of great stuff. So
maybe we'll talk about refinance in our last segment. What do you think?
Giddy up, Mary Detmus.
All right. It's Mortgage 101 with Clinton Wilkins and myself, Todd Veinotte, right here in City News. We'll be back.